Optional objectives have been part of GTFO ever since the original Rundown 4 and are a crucial part of the game. Through them, rundowns have become more accessible to the player base while still retaining the challenge that many of us crave. And while the way they've been implemented has changed a bit here and there over the years, never before have we seen them utilized quite like we will today. Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas, prisoners! Santa Scalar here, providing you with some nice holiday tunes as well as another level guide. This time we're going to be going over R8B2, and like always, we'll be starting off with the recommended loadout. This time around, that is going to consist of a bio tracker, a mine deployer, and then any two sentries of your choice. And the reasoning behind this loadout is quite simple. Bio tracker, we always take this as the information it provides is invaluable if you know how to use it properly. Mine deployer, this will help us out for some of the alarm doors in the level. Quite a few doors we could shut and mine to just deal with a lot of enemies all at once. And the two sentries, these are to give us some extra firepowers for not only the alarm doors in this level, but also a few other moments later on into it. As for what type of sentries you want to bring, it is completely up to you. Of course, if you want the most efficient sentries, you're going to want to bring Burst, as those are the king of all sentries and have been for a very long time. But this level is not all that brutal, so if you want to bring an auto, shotgun, or sniper sentry in with you, by all means go on ahead. Just make sure you're positioning them properly, and you should be good. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to wipe the data cubes clean of their information inside of zone 188, and you and your teammates will be starting off inside zone 186. In here, there will be no resources for you to collect whatsoever, but there will be some enemies to deal with, and at the far northern end of it, you'll find a security door to zone 187. This door is just simply going to be a full team scan, and inside of there, once again, no resources to collect, but there will also be no enemies you have to deal with, although there will be your very first bulkhead key, as well as the bulkhead door control and doors to the main and secondary objectives. However, that door control is a little busted up. There is a full team scan next to it, so once you and your teammates are good to go, you're just going to want to step into the scan and complete it, and upon doing so, you're going to be teleported out to the desert dimension. At the end of the little corridor area, there will be a terminal, but once you go near it, shortly afterwards, you will be teleported back out into zone 187, so you can just explore out here a little bit. But once you get teleported back, the bulkhead door control will be fixed, the room will change up just a little bit, and now you're going to want to plug that key into the door control and select one of your two objectives. Now, R8B2 does something a bit unique compared to any other optional objective level we've seen before in the past, and that being, you can't actually do both of these bulkhead doors. There are two different ways you could play the level, either a main objective only run, which is sort of the easier, simpler version of it, or you could do a secondary run where things are going to be similar for the most part, but there will be a few key moments where things are going to be quite a bit more difficult. And it's actually a good idea to play this level twice, one of each way, that way you get to experience all of it. So for those of you who are interested in doing the main objective portion, just continue watching as we'll talk about that here now. Secondary though, we're going to talk about that after we finish this and do the first deviation in the level. So once you finish the main scan, the bulkhead door to zone 189 is going to unlock. This door is just simply an open bulkhead door. In that area, there will be a fair amount of enemies as well as resources to collect and a single scout patrolling about, so be cautious of it. And at the far western side of it, you'll find a security door to zone 190. This security door is going to have a class 4 alarm tied to it though, and as you can see with the map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for these enemies, and assuming you leave these two doors shut here, which are the important ones, enemies will always go in through the southern one. So you're just going to have the northern door shut but not mined or anything. That southern door you will mine it though, and then you have your sentries in the room facing towards it so it starts shooting at enemies once they actually break it down. Once you have finished this alarm, you can pack up your sentries and head inside, and inside of zone 190, you'll be able to find more enemies, more resources, as well as another scout patrolling about, so it's basically the same thing all over again. And halfway through the zone on the northern end of it, you'll find the security door to zone 191. This door though is going to have a class 5 alarm tied to it, and as you can see with this map overlay, there are two different locations enemies could possibly spawn from, and every single door I've highlighted you're going to want to shut and mine, and then just have your two sentries in your room facing towards the open security door, and that's really all there is to it. Once again, once you finish the alarm, pack up your sentries, and you could go into zone 191. Now, when it comes to zone 191 itself, the only enemy in here, as far as I'm aware, is just going to be a regular scout patrolling about, but there will be more resources for you to collect, and early on into it, you will be able to find a terminal. Now, you need to utilize this terminal in order to unlock the security door to Zone 188. But once you put a command into it, a full team scan will appear, and once you finish that full team scan, you're going to be teleported out to the desert dimension like you were earlier. This time, all those krakens off in the distance are no longer there, and you'll actually be able to get on that terminal and put a command into it. Once you do though, a full team scan will appear, and about 5 or 6 flyers are going to spawn in. So while you work out the scan, you might as well just shoot and kill the flyers, that way you don't really take any damage from them, and once the scan finishes, you will be teleported back into Zone 191. However, shortly after you teleport back, an alarm is going to initiate that will spawn in just a few regular enemies every so often, and this is going to go on forever until you get back to the security door to Zone 188 and activate the scan tied to it. So as soon as you teleport back, run all the way into Zone 187, go to the northern end to that security door to 188, and once you get there, just simply activate the door. You don't even have to finish the full team scan, you just have to initiate it, and once you do, the alarm will be deactivated so you can work on that scan while dealing with the rest of the enemies, and once they're all dead and the scan's finished, you could then activate the checkpoint scan that's tied to the door itself. Once that's done, door will automatically open up, and you can head inside and continue on with the rest of your objective. But before we talk about Zone 188, let's quickly go and talk about the other route you could take if you selected the secondary objective. So if you did this secondary scan, the bulkhead door to the eastern side of Zone 326 is instead going to unlock, and this door is also just going to be an open bulkhead door, no scan or anything tied to it. And upon heading into there, Zone 326, there will not be a scout in here, but there will be a fair amount of enemies and no resources for you to collect whatsoever. And at the far southeastern end of it, you will find a security door to Zone 327, which is going to have a Class 5 diminished alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there are 2 different rooms enemies could possibly spawn from, and 3 different outer doors they could go through, and then 1 that leads into your room. Now, I like to preserve the door that leads directly into my room for an upcoming alarm, so I will shut the 3 outer doors and mine every single one of them, and then I will have the 2 sentries in my room facing towards the open door. That way, as enemies approach it, they will get shot at from a distance, and that's really all there is to setting up for it. Once everything is good to go, activate the alarm, and once it's done, pack up your sentries, and once you're sure every single enemy is dead, then go in and open up the security door to 327 and head into there. Reason why I preface you want to wait a little bit is because inside Zone 327, there's going to be a fair amount of enemies, some resources to collect, and 4 total scouts patrolling about. And there's only 3 different rooms inside the zone, so odds are you will have at least 1 or 2 scouts in the very first room, and you don't want to accidentally alert them. But make your way through here like you typically would, deal with all the enemies bit by bit, and once you clear everything out and got to the resources, you could go to the northern end where you'll find a security door to Zone 328. This security door though is going to have a Class 6 sustained alarm tied to it, and as you can see with this map overlay, only 1 possible spawn location for these enemies, and it's beyond the door I suggested you preserve earlier. So go on ahead, shut and mine that door. If you happen to find a C-foam grenade, go on ahead and C-foam it as well. And then when it comes to your sentries, I like to place them outside of the security door facing straight north towards that door that you have mined from earlier. That way, after enemies break it down and they enter into that room, as they're approaching the security door, they will get shot down by both of the sentries, and you and your teammates can just focus on the scans. Once everything is set up though, activate the alarm, work on the scans. They are sustained ones, so make sure everybody's staying together and everybody stays alive. And once you finish it, you can then go out, pack up your sentries, and head into Zone 328. And inside Zone 328, I believe there are no enemies in here whatsoever, but there will be a few resources to collect, as well as just other boxes and lockers that might have some other good things like artifacts in them, and there will be a terminal in the room. And just like the other half, once you put the command to the terminal, a full team scan appears, and once you finish it, you teleport back out into the desert dimension. And just like before, you approach the terminal. When you put the command into it, full team scan appears, as well as about 5 or 6 flyers spawning in. Once the scan's done, you'll be teleported back. And once again, you now have to run as quickly as you can back to the security door to 188, because there will be a permanent alarm. It's the same one as before, no additional enemies, just a few every so often. And as soon as you go back to the door to 188 and you activate the scan, it will deactivate the alarm, then do the checkpoint scan, and you can head into there. Now at this point, it doesn't matter what type of run you're doing, the next portion will for the most part be the same until we get to the end of it. So when it comes to Zone 188, there are no enemies in here whatsoever, but there are a lot of resources you can collect, and there will be a terminal. Now, before you activate, or I should say before you finish the full team scan that's tied to the terminal in the back of the room, you're going to want to go to the southwestern end of the room and the northeastern end where you'll be able to find 2 doors. These are going to be spawn points for enemies a little bit later, so make sure both of these doors are shut and you have a mine on each of them. Once you're good though, and you've got the mine set up and everything, and you've got some resources, just go to the terminal, do the full team scan. Like I said, you'll be teleported out to the desert dimension, although a little bit of a different area this time. And out here, there won't be any enemies whatsoever, but there will be 3 different terminals. However, only one of them can you really do anything with, which it's going to be the one with the purple marker on it. Go over to it, and once you've all grouped up, put the command to the terminal, which will cause a full team scan to appear, and it will also spawn in a fairly decent sized wave of regular strikers and shooters. You're just going to want to hold out on the scan while dealing with those enemies as they approach you, and once you finish the scan, you will be teleported back out into zone 188. However, as soon as you get back here, a red traveling alarm is going to be initiated, so you only need one person in this scan for it to actually gain progress, and what I recommend you do is just have one person immediately get into it, while the other 3 people run back out into the middle of the room, kind of like you can see in the background footage, and get ready to defend. If you want to, you can also place on your 2 sentries, one facing towards each door, and just hold out, and the person who's doing the traveling alarm, they are going to come all the way up, and they'll actually finish the scan right next to you. Once that scan is finished though, another full team scan is going to appear, which will complete very quickly, and then once you finish that one, another full team scan will appear, and once you complete that second one, then the alarm will be deactivated. So once you got all the scans done, deal with the enemies, grab your sentries, and resupply it with the resources in the room, and then look around as you'll be able to find another terminal. Once you approach it, you can activate a full team scan on the terminal just like before, and also just like before, once you finish it, you'll be teleported back out into the desert dimension again. This time though, there will be a few regular strikers and shooters sleeping out in the area, and now one of the other 3 terminals will have the purple marker on it, which is the one you have to go to. Once you go there, you put the command in the terminal, and just like before, a full team scan is going to appear, but instead of regular strikers and shooters spawning in, it's actually going to be spawning in a few flyers. So look up into the sky, as that's where they're going to approach from. Just shoot them down as they get close to you while you work on the scan. And once you finish it, once again, you'll be teleported back out to zone 188. And just like before, another alarm is going to be initiated. There will be a full team scan nearby you need to complete. Once you finish that one, another full team scan is going to appear. And when you finish that one, then you're going to have one big red scan that you have to complete, and then 4 small red scans. And once you finish the small ones, the alarm will be deactivated. Throughout this, you're going to have flyers spawning in, as well as a few regular strikers as shooters, and I find that the strikers as shooters don't like to come from the 2 small rooms like they did earlier, but instead they come from down south through the open security door. Once you finish this alarm though and you dealt with all the enemies, you are going to once again want to resupply with the nearby resources, and once you have all of them, you can then go to the 3rd and final terminal that has now appeared in this zone, and once you do, same thing as before, activate full team scan. Once it's done, you'll be teleported back out into the desert dimension. Now this time while you're out here, there will be a few regular strikers and shooters, as well as some nightmare strikers and shooters. Once you've killed them all off though, you'll be able to go to the 3rd and final terminal out here, and just like before, put a command into it, full team scan will appear, and then I think 2 or 3 nightmare strikers are going to spawn in, but really easy to deal with them while you're working on the scan. Now, once this scan is finished, where you end up next will actually differentiate depending on which objective you did. If you're doing just a main objective run, you will appear back in zone 188, or at least a place that looks like it, that is going to be out in the desert dimension, so it's a little bit different. This is nice though, because it means there are new fresh resources out here we're going to want to collect, and there is no alarm immediately, so we can actually take all the time in the world we want. Once we've grabbed those resources and set up some defenses though, we can then go over to the terminal and activate its command on there, which will cause another alarm to initiate. Or I should say rather, it causes a full team scan to appear, and once you finish that one, then an alarm will initiate. As for setting up, this is basically the last part of the level, so feel free to place some mines near the northeastern and southwestern doors. Those doors don't actually exist this time, they're just open areas, but enemies will still be spawning from them, so having mines in those areas, as well as one sentry facing towards each, will help you out quite a bit. And once you have finished the full team scan on the terminal, you're then going to have to deal with 2 full team scans, I believe, 4 small red scans, and then 2 big red scans at the same time. And once you finish every single one of them, you will then be teleported back out into the original 188, and you don't have to worry about enemies whatsoever from this point on. For those of you who are doing a secondary objective run though, you're not teleported into this area. Instead, you're teleported to somewhere else, which you might recognize if you played Rundown 6, and out here, same thing as before, there's going to be a lot of resources you can collect, even more so this time I believe, and there will be another terminal. Although it is incredibly foggy out here, so it might be a little bit challenging to see, but again, take all the time you want, go around, grab resources, utilize them, or at least note down where they are in case you need to grab them on a moment's notice. And then once you're good to go to the terminal, put the command into it, and that will cause a full team scan to appear. Once you finish that full team scan, the fog in the area will start to dissipate, so it'll be much easier to see, and you're going to have a mini Kraken boss fight. If you played Rundown 6, then this should look very familiar to you, and you should already know how to handle this. If not, then, well, you've got a bit of a special case on your hand. A quick summary of it is that giant Kraken enemy, there will be a tumor somewhere on his body you're going to have to shoot and pop, and you're going to have to pop a total of 3 of them in order to kill it. While this is going on though, he's going to be shooting a barrage of projectiles at you, which there's a few different ways you could go about it, so make sure you're hiding behind stuff or hiding underneath objects, depending on what type of attack he uses, and he's also going to be spawning in a few waves of flyers. The easiest way I find to deal with this is just focus on the tumor until the flyers show up, then quickly get rid of them because he doesn't spawn them all that often, and then also make sure you stay near some sort of structure to get some cover behind his projectiles. Also, keep an eye and ear out because every so often a Nightmare Striker will spawn in from behind you and try to rush you down. Once you pop the first tumor though, he will fog up the area like crazy and then spawn more flyers, but you just simply take some cover, deal with them. Biotracker will help out tremendously in killing these flyers since you just have to look for the tags. And once a little bit of time has transpired, the fog will dissipate again, he'll spawn in a new tumor somewhere on his body, and you just rinse and repeat. Like I said, once you pop all 3 tumors, he will die and the fight will be over, and shortly afterwards, you will be teleported back out into the original Zone 188. Now, at this point, your objective is completed. All you have to do is backtrack towards the beginning of the level into the first zone and go to the eastern side to the security door to Zone 115. This is just an open door, no scary thing tied to it. And as you cross this giant bridge you're going through, you'll have some dialogue from Schaefer, which basically explains what just happened and where you'll be heading towards next. And at the far end of the zone, you'll find a security door to Zone 193. Now, this security door is just simply going to have a full team scan tied to it, but once you open the door, an extraction alarm is going to be initiated that's going to be spawning regular strikers and shooters from behind you. So, to deal with this, I recommend just place both of your sentries on that bridge near the security door facing towards the west. That way it'll shoot at enemies as they come across it, and then you and your teammates just run into the room. There you'll find your extraction scan, but once you step onto the scan, another extraction alarm is going to be initiated. This one spawning in flyers, as well as potentially armored flyers if you did the second objective, behind you in the giant pit. But this isn't all that difficult to deal with because your sentries are focusing on the few regular strikers and shooters from behind, so you and your teammates can focus on the flyers and get rid of them really quickly. This scan will take a little bit of time to complete, but once you get it all the way to 100%, you are done and have completed R8B2. And that's all there is to it. R8B2 is the first of a few Rundown 8 missions that require you to play the level multiple times in order to see each of the optional objectives. And while you could just do a secondary run and earn both completion badges, I find it far more enjoyable to go for a main only run and then a secondary run to see how the level deviates depending on which route you take. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this mission. If you have any tips or tricks to this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or just something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all of you. There aren't that many days left until the calendars tick over and we enter into 2024, so I hope you all had a wonderful 2023, and hopefully, I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.